Hello and welcome to The Signal on CBC Radio. It is Wednesday, October 16th. I'm Bernice Hillier, filling in for Adam Walsh. Today on The Signal, we are talking about heat pumps. It is the time of year when those heating costs creep up and become scarier than a Halloween haunted house. Are you considering adding a heat pump to your house? What do you want to know about that before you make that move? Or maybe you already have a heat pump in your house. Well, we have two guests who will try to answer your questions. Call in with your questions about heat pumps or tell us about your experience with heat pumps if you already have them in your home. The numbers to call are 1-800-563-8255. So 1-800-563-8255. You can also call 709-772-7111. The number to send a text to the show is 709-327-8206 during the show, or you can send us an email as well with your question or comment. The email address is thesignal@cbc.ca. Now, we have two guests on The Signal today to talk about heat pumps. In our St. John studio, we are joined by Peter Upshall of Newfoundland Power. He is an energy solutions engineer with Take Charge, which is a joint project of Newfoundland Power and Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro. Hello, Peter.
Hello, Bernice. So glad to be with you today.
Well, thanks for taking the time to be with us and to take questions from our listeners if they have any for you. And joining us on the line is Nathan Horton of One Click Heating and Cooling. It's a company that is involved with heat pump installations in various parts all over Canada. Hello, Nathan. Welcome to The Signal.
Well, Bernice, thank you for having me.
Well, the first question I want to ask each of you, in case someone is very short for time and they're only going to be able to hear the first part of our program today. Peter, you meet up with someone in the elevator. You have 45 seconds to answer this question. Why should I add a heat pump to my home? What do you say?
Well, it's one of the most efficient ways to heat your home. Heating costs can be quite reasonable with a heat pump, and it's a way to reduce those heating costs. And it can give you full year comfort as well, because the same equipment gives you heating and it gives you air conditioning. So you can get all year comfort in your home using a heat pump.
That's pretty good answer. Nathan, what would you say if you met up with someone and they had very little time, but they wanted to be convinced of the merits of a heat pump?
Heat pumps are great technology. They're extremely efficient in comparison to fossil fuels, especially oil. Provide you year-round comfort without having to wait on deliveries for fuel.
Wonderful. You guys are very convincing. We're going to delve a lot more into what's going on with heat pumps right now in terms of their popularity and how they function and why homeowners might want to consider them. Peter, you've been involved in home efficiency issues for a long time. When did you become convinced that heat pumps were a good way to go?
Yeah, so I'd say it's probably 10 plus years ago, starting to get familiar with heat pump technology. And I guess if you go back far enough, basically we were talking about central heat pumps. So that's the sort of system where there's usually ductwork going through the house like a hot air furnace would have, and there's one big box that sits in the basement, typically the same as a furnace, and it's absorbing heat from outside, moving it all through the house, and again being able to provide that air conditioning. So that used to be what was available when people talked about heat pumps, but in the last 10 to 15 years for sure in Newfoundland, ductless or mini split heat pumps have really come on. So it's two different names for the same heating system, but there's typically what you will see is an outdoor unit that absorbs the heat, and then one or more units inside, typically mounted on a high wall, and that's where the heat or the air conditioning is being delivered. So when they came on, it became much more cost-effective and practical to retrofit existing homes. So that was a way of getting heat pumps into, all the homes that existed, whereas that central heat pump was really much more limited and probably just when it was being built or replacing a warm air furnace.
Now, Nathan, you're not from this province, but you've been here and your company has partners and installers here. How busy has your company been with heat pump installations in Newfoundland and Labrador?
The heat pump installations across the entire province have really over the last 2-3 years really picked up. Out in the Corner Brook area, out in Deer Lake and these areas, we're probably 2-3 months now backlogged on installations. So people are listening, people are getting involved, and people are removing oil.
Peter, how often do you get questions about how well heat pumps are going to work in the winters we have in Newfoundland and Labrador?
Yeah, well, it's in a way it's probably becoming less in that most people now know somebody with heat pumps. So in the last, I'm going to say 5 to 10 years, the number of people that have adopted the technology has grown quite significantly. In fact, about 1 in 3 homes in Newfoundland now has a heat pump. So I'll say people know somebody. If they don't have one themselves, one of their neighbors or a family or friend has a heat pump. And so it's much more familiar. And they do work very well in cold climates. And the technology has gotten better over the last number of years in meeting that cold climate heating need.
Nathan, I want to get you to speak to that. How well suited would you say our climate in Newfoundland and Labrador is for heat pumps?
If you're installing the right heat pump system that can handle pretty much any temperature we have in Canada. We've installed heat pumps really up as far as Edmonton when you think from a geographical area. So we have systems that are operating -40, -50 with backup heating sources. It's just ensuring that the backup heating sources are with that heat pump.
You're listening to The Signal on CBC Radio 1. Today we're talking about heat pumps, and we are taking your questions. If you have a question about heat pumps, you can call in. If you want to tell us about your experience with heat pumps, do that. We would love to hear from you. The numbers to call are 1-800-563-8255 or 709-772-7111. You can text us during the live show, 709-327-8206, or you can send us an email, thesignal@cbc.ca. We have Yuvadi on the line now from Glovertown, and we're going to go to her immediately. Good afternoon to you, Yuvadi.
Good afternoon. So I have a few questions to ask. We installed a heat pump last year, and I heard people say to save a lot of energy and light bill. But the first we installed in before Christmas, but our light bill is like 600 or something. The power is very expensive. People said you will pay only half, but I'm not too sure because my husband, he always go turn on, turn off, like the temperature. When he go to bed, he turn off and turn down. Even though now I keep 20, but every time when we go out shopping, he turned down to 16. So I said, don't touch it, but he wouldn't believe it. So, and I think the first time we installed in last winter, maybe because we have some heater in the room and in the basement, maybe that's why the light bill is high. But I turned off all the heater in the house. So I'm wondering, or in the bedroom, should I leave a little bit open for let the heat go in the house, in the room? Or should I still use the heater? We have a fireplace used to burn the wood, but not, not efficient. It's kind of like an open fireplace, and it doesn't keep house warm enough, only the living room.
So Yuvadi, I just want to understand what exactly you have in place. You have baseboard heaters, and you're wondering about still using those. But what was the heat pump that you had installed? Was it a mini split? What sort of system do you have?
A mini split, and I have the heater, the baseboard around the house. And we also have one wall, like when you turn on like a fan in the kitchen.
Okay. All right. Well, let's just ask Peter. Maybe Peter has some questions for you, Yuvati. So we'll keep you on the line. Peter, do you have any thoughts on what might be happening and why Yuvati is not seeing the sort of, I guess, decline in her electric bill that she had thought might be happening?
Yeah, well, Yuvati raises several very good points with her question. So thank you very much for that. In terms of operating the heat pump, it is best to leave it on and let it do its thing. One way to look at it is whatever heat comes out of that heat pump, you're getting at half price. So let it do its thing and provide as much heat to the house as possible. There are some important considerations when you're looking at where to locate a unit. And, I don't know if you have more than one head or indoor air handler, Yuvati. Can you answer that question?
We have in the living room. So we have a fireplace, the big in the center, the brick. Right. So they block, so they block the heat to the house.
Right.
So
yeah. So one head can do a certain amount of your house, and it sounds like it's upstairs and not not in the basement as you alluded to. So it won't be able to displace the heat that's required in the basement, and then it'll heat that living room area, and you will get some spillover into other rooms to displace electric resistance. Typically, what we would recommend is that you set your heat pump on a level. I'm just going to say 21 or 22 degrees Celsius, and then you turn back the baseboard thermostats by at least a few degrees below that. So maybe 18 or 19, because what you want is the heat pump to give you as much heat and the electric baseboard or electric resistance to not come on at certain times. But let it run as much as it can. The only reason to set it back a bit at night would be if it's too warm for sleeping and you want the house to be a little bit cooler. That would be the only reason why I would set it back, because again, that's the heat that you want, is the stuff that's coming out of the heat pump. It gets a little bit tricky to do energy comparisons on homes, especially if maybe you were burning some wood before and now you're not doing it because you've got the heat pump. We hear from some people that's what they sort of get, I'll say, fed up with the burning the wood and the mess and so on. And then they stop that and they put in the heat pump. And so, the energy that used to be supplied by wood that, appears for many people to be free, now you've got to pay some money for that. So that can affect heating costs as well. Trying to do something with that the fireplace from an energy efficiency perspective, if you're not using it, if you can really try to seal it off, because air gets sucked out of a chimney and it pulls warm air out of your house, and cool air comes in to replace it, of course, and that's not efficient. So if you're not going to use that fireplace, try to seal off that flume or chimney as best you can, so you're not getting air leakage up there.
Nathan? Yeah, I try to tell my husband, but he wouldn't believe it. And with fireplace now, we burn the garbage, right? Mm-hmm. The file, paper thing. We never use for heat the house for benefit anyway. Since we had a house for 25 years, and we use the electric heat. Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Yuvati, thank you very much for your call today. I want to give Nathan a chance to weigh in. Nathan, we've let Yuvati go there now, but any thoughts that come to mind as you hear what she's saying about just trying to figure out, do I keep my baseboard heaters on? What's going on? Why are my electric costs still so high?
I agree with Peter on this one. For one, you want to leave that system operating. You don't want to turn it off, especially in the winter months. The outside condenser unit does have a backup heater in it. So you want to keep this operating for it can keep at capacity. And in most cases, we do recommend to bring those thermostats down a few degrees to make sure the heat pump's acting as that primary. Second question I'd ask for that is also on insulation. How well the home is insulated, how much of that heat's going to maintain. And then I think Peter already asked the question. This is a single zone heat pump, so it's only going to handle so much of the home. When you look at mini splits and what you're looking to install, most of the time we recommend for a homeowner to do a whole home heating system. So we look at putting multiple heads throughout the house to make sure we have full heat throughout the home.
Okay. My guests today on The Signal are Peter Upshall in our St. John's studio and Nathan Horton on the line. Peter Upshall is an energy solutions engineer with Take Charge, which is a joint project of Newfoundland Power and Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro. Nathan Horton is with One Click Heating and Cooling, a company that is involved with heat pump installations all over Canada, including here in Newfoundland and Labrador. We have another caller on the line now. Elmo is calling in from Grand Falls, Windsor. Good afternoon to you, Elmo.
Good afternoon. I got to say, I love my heat pump. Stuck in a heat pump in our house about 8 years ago or something. Turned off all the electric heat upstairs is on zero. Haven't had it on since I put in the heat pump. Set it at 20 and it's there summer and winter. And no, I don't save a dime on my electrical bill because it gives you peace and comfort in the middle of the summer because that air conditioner is running.
So, Elmo, I mean, a lot of people do talk about the cost savings. It sounds like that wasn't top priority for you.
I don't believe there's any way to save on your hydro bill because me and my wife are here. Our daughter moved out, went to university 2 years ago, and we thought, we'll burn less electricity with only two of us in the house. And you know something? The hydro bill never dropped $1. So I don't believe there's any way to drop your hydro bill because there's less showering here, less lights on, less everything, and it never dropped a dime. So I don't believe there's any way to save it. I think I don't know where it goes, but there's no way to save it. How's that?
And Elma, what else do you hear from people about, why they haven't made the switch to a heat pump, when they hear that you have?
Some people just him and haw until they get around to it. I know a couple people that him and haw, and they put one in last year just before we had this hot summer. And I'm going to tell you, they enjoyed it over the summer. You could sleep at night when it's 39 degrees. So,
Well, Elmo, thanks for calling in and telling us about your experience with heat pumps. We do have other callers on the line, but appreciate your time today.
Okay. I recommend anyone who wants one to get one. And guess what? If you're burning wood and go to a heat pump, you're not going to save hydro. You're going to burn more.
Thanks, Elmo.
Okay. Have a good one. Bye.
You are listening to The Signal on CBC Radio 1. Today we are talking about heat pumps. Do you have a question about heat pumps? Do you want to tell us about your experience with heat pumps? As we've heard now from a couple of the callers, you can call in to 1-800-563-8255 or 709-772-7111. My guests today are Peter Upshall in our St. John's studio. He's an energy solutions engineer with Take Charge, which is a joint project of Newfoundland Power and Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro. Nathan Horton is with One Click Heating and Cooling, a company that is involved with heat pump installations all over Canada, including here in Newfoundland and Labrador. We have Daryl on the line now from Gander. Good afternoon, Daryl. Good afternoon, Daryl.
On your show?
Hi, Daryl. We are hearing you now. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing good. And yourself?
We're doing fine. Thank you very much. Do you have a question or a comment about heat pumps?
Yeah, well, I got a question. Myself and my wife were looking at a heat pump, especially the hot summer we had this year, and fans don't really cut it. You're just only circulating warm air. And if you open your windows, you're just letting more hot air come in. So we're exploring the avenue of a heat pump. But what I don't understand is, I got all electric heat. So where I got all electric heat, there's no rebates. But if you had oil, then you get a rebate for converting from one to the other. So the objective is try to save on your energy. So it shouldn't matter if you got all electric heaters or oil, whatever. I should be able to get the same rebate as the person that got oil. And according to Clean Energy Canada, that the heat pump is a cleaner operating mechanism compared to the baseboard heater. So they encourage for more clean energy, and that's more of a clean energy versus the baseboard heaters. So my question is to the gentleman in Newfoundland Power, Peter, how come I can't get a rebate like the person with the oil? Because we're all in the same boat. We got to cut our costs. We got to try to save energy. So why not offer it to everybody? And I'll take it a step further. The governments here in Canada are exporting millions and billions of dollars elsewhere, and they want everything to be more eco-friendly and whatever. Why don't they just cover the cost for people to do the changeover? Because they're promoting it and pushing it. So I think that's something that should be looked at as well.
All right, Daryl, we'll let you go, but we will get Peter to respond to your question about that. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for raising that point, Daryl, and it's a fair one. So the response, it really revolves around the fact that the federal government has been moving to try to get away from oil to reduce greenhouse gases. They've made monies available, and our province has taken them up on that and has made put a program in place. Take Charge administers that program on behalf of the two levels of government. And right now, as you said, it's really directed at people who are burning oil and moving them off oil to heat pumps or just to any other heating option, to electric resistance options as well. I can say that up until February of this year, the federal government had another program, Greener Homes. They stopped it at that point, and that did have monies that were available for anybody. And no matter what your heating system you had, anybody that wanted to put in a heat pump could avail of some grants and some federal government money. But that has ceased as of February of this year. So he's right. There's no money if you want to go from electric resistance to a heat pump. No money's available for your home. Just if you are burning oil and you want to get off oil.
Okay. That's good to know. Nathan is back on the line with us. We were having some technical issues with our connection with him, but I understand it's much better now. Nathan Horton of One Click Heating and Cooling is a company that's involved with heat pump installations all over Canada. And Nathan, I know your company is familiar with programs that are in place across the country. What would you say about what's on the go right now that might help people with paying for a heat pump purchase and installation?
One thing you can look at is the Greener Homes Grant Loan Program is still available. As much as it's not a grant aspect, when we're having customers that are doing electric heat to a heat pump, we do recommend the $40,000 0% loan, which does make it a little bit more cost effective for somebody to be able to put in the heat pump system. And that is still available through the greenerhomesgrant.ca.
Okay. Peter, there have been grants and rebates available, of course, in the past. So right now, is there anything that you can say to people about what's currently available in terms of help that they might be able to tap into to make a heat pump installation possible?
Yeah. So for electric resistance homes, there's that 0% interest that Nathan just mentioned, but there's no grants available at this point if you're using electric heat. Only if you're burning oil and you want to move away from the oil and get rid of the oil.
We do have a couple of callers on the line, but I want to ask about dollars and cents. Nathan, I know you talk to a lot of people about what they're going to be looking at in terms of the total cost. How do you go about navigating that conversation? How do you tell people what they might be looking at, or how do you even go about determining what the cost ultimately will be for an installation and the purchase of equipment?
Great question. There's a few things we need to look at when we're going into a house from an installation standpoint. One's going to be the system that's going in. So there's some variables whether or not it's a mini split system or if it's going to be a ducted. And the second one, which in some cases is a little bit more, is the electrical aspect. So when we're doing a ducted system, for instance, we need to bring the house up to a 200 amp capacity. And in Newfoundland, when that happens, we're also looking at the entire home. So there's other electrical that we have to upgrade at the same time. The average cost for a homeowner will vary. On a whole home system, it's usually running around $13,000 and upwards of about $25,000 if we're doing a full electrical upgrade.
Okay. And I know many companies do some of the legwork for customers in terms of knowing what's available and how to go about applying for funding and that sort of thing. Do you do that, Nathan?
Yeah, so we actually have an entire team internally that assists customers with navigating different grant programs, different loan programs, including the Greener Homes Grant 0% loan, and assisting customers in navigating through that process. One thing we do at One Click is we do handle the entire project. So we work with local electricians, local heat pump companies. In Corner Brook, we're partners with Total Energy Solutions. And we come out and we do the entire project. So look at it more of what's going to be needed to upgrade that property and give customers insights in advance so they have an idea of what to expect.
Okay. We've got Richard on the line now, and we're going to go to Richard. Good afternoon and welcome to The Signal.
Hi, how are you?
We're doing just fine, thanks. Do you have a question or a comment for our guests?
Well, a question, I guess, and I'm glad this is your topic for today because this is very important, and I'm glad you did it today. I just installed a heat pump in my home, and I got to say I'm very, very happy with it. It's a different heat. I don't know how to explain it. It's just like it's there, but it's like I had a fourth air furnace, and it was blowing in your face all day, but this is just there. So it is, I must say, so far so good. Now, I got two questions, and they're very short questions. One is, there's a white water hose, I guess, whatever you want to call it, that gets condensation for the air conditioning, and it looks like an S-trap. Is that supposed to be full of water at the bottom, which I noticed the other day there was water in there? And the second question is, I just recently got my grant, and unfortunately my wife passed away a little while back, so I'm thinking of selling the house now. I'm buying another one. Can I reapply to install a second heat pump in the second house if I buy it? Is that a problem?
Yeah, Nathan,
Peter or Nathan, whoever wants to jump in there.
I'll take the first question. The condensation line that's coming off the heat pump, it shouldn't actually be filled with water. So you want to make sure that that's draining correctly into a drain, or you can actually add a condensate pump to ensure that water is being pushed through. It shouldn't actually be sitting and resting. So when you're saying that, I'm thinking that it may just be a little bit too level and not have the right line in it for it to actually drain out.
Okay, would that cause me a problem?
It can back up and stay in the system. It can also mold and so on. So if it is sitting in that line, I would have whoever installed the heat pump just come back and take a quick look. Make sure that's draining properly, or put on a pump to make sure that's being drained effectively.
Okay, I could take it out myself, but yeah, you're right. I will call contract.
And Richard, the second part of your question, thanks for asking it, because it gives me an opportunity to mention our website, takechargenl.ca. And if you go to that website, there's a specific area there with the oil to electric program. There's an email address and some telephone numbers as well that you can send in very specific questions like the one you asked. But there's also a lot of very good information there about how much funding is available for people that want to move from oil to electric, and you know, any number of very important pieces of information related to that program. So I don't know the answer specifically to your question about, you know, selling and then reapplying at a different house, but the folks that are very close to that program and that answer those emails and questions, they would be able to help with that specific question, Richard.
Okay, well, thanks very much, guys. You've been very helpful. I really love the program, especially the topic, and have a great day.
Thanks very much for calling in, Richard. It's been good to have you. You are listening to The Signal on CBC Radio 1. Today we're talking about heat pumps, a very hot topic right now, of course, with everyone thinking about their heating costs this winter. My guests are Peter Upshall of Newfoundland Power. He is an energy solutions engineer with Take Charge, which is a joint project of Newfoundland Power and Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro. And of course, he was just mentioning the website, takechargenl.ca. You can get some information there. Joining us on the line as well is Nathan Horton of One Click Heating and Cooling, which is a company that's involved in heat pump installations right across the country. Now, we do have another caller on the line. We'll go directly to the phone line. But first, actually, I should give the numbers again because I want to get as many calls in as possible. People are very curious about this topic. The number to call is 1-800-563-8255. Daryl is on the line from Kilbride. Good afternoon, Daryl, and welcome to The Signal.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I've had a heat pump now close on 14 years, overall satisfied. But what I'd like to make people aware of, when these systems break down, they are not cheap to fix. Basically, after the warranty expired, as is common with things these days, things started breaking on it. So the solenoids were first, replaced a couple of them. Had a compressor motor go in the outside unit, and then this is all within the last few years now. And then a blower motor on the inside, and then the fan unit on the outside. And, I mean, to replace all these parts was well into the thousands of dollars, and then somebody told me really the lifespan of a heat pump is only probably 12 or 14 years. So, I mean, in 12 or 14 years, are we looking at a whole bunch of people needing to replace heat pumps and going through the same old cost? I mean, I remember the old oil furnaces, you couldn't kill them, and repairing them just didn't have to do it very much. I mean, what is the lifespan of heat pump? And I definitely want people to be aware that when they break down, they're expensive to fix.
Nathan, I want to throw that question to you. How long does a heat pump last?
Great question. Average heat pump lifespan is approximately 15 years. You can get a little bit longer lifespan out of them based on maintenance. One of the recommendations we always give to customers is to make sure they're changing filters. Make sure that outside condenser is clear of debris and snow. It's really, you got to take care of the systems. Compared to those old boiler furnaces, and gentlemen, you're correct, they're tanks. They were very hard to break. New technology has a lot of computer system to it. There's motherboards, there's chips, there's a lot of things that can break down. So proper maintenance and taking care of that system is paramount to getting the proper lifespan out of it.
Yeah, so I mean, as a general comment, I mean, I'm pretty good at maintenance, did all that stuff, but it seems I'm nearing the end of the lifespan for the heat pump now. I mean, 13,000 back then, and what am I looking at? In another few years, I got to spend in excess of another 10,000 to get another full unit and stuff like that, right? So that is something people should be aware of. They're not like lifelong purchases, and don't count on them just to last your lifetime with very little having to put the money into them, because if you got to spend a couple of $1,000s on a year keep repairing the system, you've got to factor that into your equations too.
Daryl, thanks very much for calling in with that point, for sure. I'm going to ask Peter to weigh in, but we'll let you go, and you can listen perhaps on the radio then, as Peter has a comment about what you just had to say.
Yeah, for sure. Carry on. I mean, it is a consideration. They don't seem to be lasting as long, say, in an old oil furnace. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you for calling in. I really appreciate that. Peter, what do you say to people, given the expense that they go to install these units, and then factoring in the years you potentially will get out of them? What do you say to people to justify why they should still consider heat pumps? Yeah,
so, I mean, it is an important consideration. And as Nathan said, we typically tell people 12 to 15 years is kind of the rated life of a heat pump. And, the sort of warranties that you see on a lot of systems is about 8 years. So I guess the manufacturers are confident enough to say, we think it's going to work well for that 8 years. But the next 7 or so of the rated life, you start to get into maintenance issues. So definitely an important consideration. As I look at it, there's 2 reasons why people often put in heat pumps. One is to get energy savings, and the other one is to get improved comfort in their house. So the comfort sort of stands on its own. But in terms of the savings, most people are going to say, is it worth the investment? How long is it going to take for me to get my money back on this investment? And it really varies so much from house to house. Typically for mini-split or multi-split systems, the more wide open your home is, the better savings you're going to get. In terms of the location for putting the heat pump, if you can put it, I put mine downstairs to get more savings, but I'm a bit of an energy nerd, and I was really interested in energy savings, not so much the air conditioning. It varies so much. Again, I'm going to suggest that people could have a look at our website. We've got a section there on heat pumps, and there's a heat pump calculator with a few pieces of information like the size of your house, how big is the area where you're putting the heat pump, and how much are you paying for it. It'll give you an estimate as to how quickly you're going to get your money back. And, if that's 5 years, it's like, okay, that seems like a pretty good investment. But if it's 10 years, well, you probably need to scratch your head a little bit more and wonder if I'm just doing it for energy savings and for the economics, is it the right thing? You marry that with the air conditioning and the comfort benefit, and it can tip the scales for people. But we do have that calculator on our website, so people are certainly welcome to come visit us at takechargenl.ca and try that out for their own specific situation.
Thanks very much for that, Peter. If you're in the market for a heat pump, of course, you want to get one installed. There are many options out there, and it always pays to shop around. A company in Springdale that's been around for a long time is keeping very busy these days with heat pump installations. Corey Stone is a co-owner of Pro Electrical Heat Pumps, and he joins me on the line now. Good afternoon, Corey, and welcome to The Signal.
Hi, Bernice. How are you?
Fine, thank you. What kind of demand are you seeing for heat pumps now?
Well, we're seeing a very significant demand for heat pumps currently. The type of demand, I guess, is coming from a different segment of the population for us. We've been working with the seniors and some old age pensioners mostly, and helping them navigate the process with the programs that are in place. We were started with the mini splits and multi zones, but we kind of transitioned, and that's kind of dominated where we are right now.
Corey, tell me about, you and I were chatting earlier this morning. Tell me about one of your first encounters with a senior couple. You were in their home looking things over, and what they were dealing with at that time.
Yeah, that's a good story, Bernice. It was we were assessing a home for a heat pump installation on a referral. And when I went into the home, I saw the two seniors there, and they were up in age, one up approximately into their 80s, and sectioned off with blankets, and they were in one area of their home trying to keep the heat in because they were running with the oil at that time, and they were having trouble balancing because of their income, the cost of heating the complete home versus an area where they spend most of their time and their other bills like their cars and stuff like that. So it really moved us because I didn't realize at the time the significance of the program. And we looked at, well, how can we help the seniors? Because they are aware there was a program, but they had no idea how to really navigate that, to do the application, get the documentation. So that's kind of how we moved into that area, to help them get into these programs, set up the systems, and keep their costs to a minimum. So, it makes their life way more affordable, and they've got great heat. You don't have to make some of those choices between oil and food or car payments or some of those tough things they're dealing with today.
How are people affording to put in heat pumps? With the rising cost of everything, where or how are they finding the money to do this?
Well, most of the ones we're working with, as I said, are income qualified under the oil to electric program with the Take Charge NL. It's a great program. We really love the program. We love working with Hydro and NL Power separately. They've been great. And so these programs, in most cases, fit into the budgets of the seniors. So to install a central heat pump system, we've been able to do it. Our team is combined, we can do all aspects. So one contractor goes in and does everything. So we've been able to meet, in most cases, the funding that's available without taking any money out of their pocket, or very little at the very least.
What would you say about why people want to add heat pumps to their homes? What do people say to you, Corey?
Well, most of them are looking at a couple of things. First, they're the ones we're working with again are age, so they've been having to deal with wood and oil over the number of years, and they're into their, up in the 70s probably. Lots of our customers in that area, 70s to 80s. So they're struggling with wood, they're struggling with income, so they want to get the energy savings that comes from getting a heat pump system, and they want to back off from reliance on wood and oil and the challenge you're having, especially in the rural areas, because even having delivery of oil in those areas has been a challenge because, with the low, I guess, the oil companies run their business in a manner, I imagine. The amount of oil they deliver has to be a certain minimum in rural areas. So even that has impacted their decisions, because they can't get the oil for their tank when they need it.
Corey, thank you very much for taking our call today. It's been great to have you on the show.
You're welcome, Bernice. Thank you.
That's Corey Stone. He is a co-owner of Pro Electrical Heat Pumps. They're based in Springdale. You're listening to The Signal on CBC Radio 1. Today we're talking about heat pumps, and you've been burning up the phone lines today. So we've got another caller on the line now from Embry. Colin, good afternoon. Welcome to The Signal.
Yes, good afternoon. I have a technical question. I have a 48,000 BTU mini split. The outside unit is a double stack with 5 lines coming off it. But when I bought the unit, it only had 2 air handling units inside, and they're both 24,000, one on my main floor and one upstairs. But when I'm doing heating. Of course, the heat kind of goes in through the house and rises. So I never really have to use the one upstairs for heat. I mostly only use it for cooling. So I'm just wondering, on a technical basis, can I add another 1 or 2 units off the 5? I've only used 2. There's 3 more. If I could use 1 or 2 more off that main unit outside to access another air handling unit in an area of the house that doesn't get as much heat, am I able to do that? I know I have 125 feet pre-charge that came with it, and I've only used probably about 30 feet most.
Now, Nathan, is that something you feel that you're able to talk about?
Yeah, it's a great question. When we size a heat pump, when you're putting those air handler units in the house, we try to only go maximum about 10% over the BTU range of the condenser, just because you want to make sure that you can get enough capacity through it. Any more than that, so any more than about 10% over, you're going to have a hard time getting the system to work properly.
Okay.
Colin, do you have any follow-up questions with regard to that?
No, that was just, something that, because someone had said that, it has the 48,000 BTU capacity. So if you're not using the 24,000 upstairs for heat, then that 24,000 would be available for heat. So,
hypothetically speaking, it could work. I guess my fear, if I was installing it into a customer's home, is that they turned on all 3 heads at the same time, and then you're going to not have the capacity for the system, and you're going to run into some maintenance issues down the road if you're oversizing.
Okay, thank you.
Colin, thank you very much for calling in today. We've got Lloyd on the line from Fogo Island. Good afternoon, Lloyd, and welcome to the Signal.
Hi, people. I hope everyone's doing good today. I got to say that I'm quite pleased with the heat pump. I installed a 30,000 BTU. My home was only 24 by 36. I have 3 kids. And I was thinking about the future. I retired a couple of years ago. I'm 67. So I was thinking about I was burning wood in the winter, and I didn't want to be burning wood when I'm 70 and 80. So I done a lot of checking out about heat pumps, and I done a lot of research on it, and I didn't find anything too negative about it. The only thing is what the guys mentioned before is they only last 10 to 15 years, so it's a chance you got to take. And so anyhow, I installed mine, and like I said, I'm quite happy. I was burning oil and wood in the winter, and the cost of oil is going up every year. So I wanted to get rid of oil, which I did. And I haven't burned any wood in the last 2 years, and my heat pump does the job. I'm quite happy with it. I think I done some calculations, and my heat pump will be paid for in 2 years. So I'm quite happy. Anyhow, I just want to get on another subject. You guys might say this guy is being negative, but anyhow, I'm just going to make a comment that, I wanted to install another heat pump for my daughter, which lives in Gander. And I did the calculations, and plus the company I was dealing with, they did calculations. So it was 36,000 BTU that she needed for her residence. And I called a couple companies, and in my opinion, they needed to upgrade the electrical service to 200 amp, which was okay, I understand. So anyhow, they wanted $8,000 for that, and they wanted $22,000 to install the heat pump. Now, this is a 36,000 BTU. Now, anyhow, I have friends that do install heat pumps, and anyhow, I done some checking out. Anyhow, I purchased a heat pump myself through Sinville, a company in Quebec. And I actually installed it myself with some help from a refrigeration tech, which was my friend. And I installed a heat pump for less than $5,000. I think it was $5,200 total cost. Now, there was no labor involved, but this company wanted $22,000 to install this heat pump. Now, in my opinion, to me, that's just price gouging. I understand that the company, yes, they got to make money. They have overhead. But, these companies that are charging these prices, it's just astronomical. I can't believe that, the government is letting these companies get away with so much profit. And, Anyhow, that's my beef on heat pumps. Anyhow, I just want to hear the guys' opinions there on what I just said. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much, Lloyd. Peter, any words of caution or response there to what Lloyd had to say?
Yeah, it's a fair comment, and you don't want to see prices that are way too high, and certainly we would recommend people get multiple quotes so that hopefully you're going to get the most competitive pricing that you can for a system. So yeah, we would we certainly don't like to hear stories like that either, Lloyd.
Nathan, what would you say about that in terms of, the cost that sometimes gets quoted to customers and they find it to be unpalatable?
It's a very fair question. Every installation is a little bit different from what's going to be involved and what's required. But as you guys have said, you got to look at sources. You got to, check a couple pricing, check the equipment. One thing that we do at oneclickheat.com is all of our pricing's online. So we try to be very transparent with customers. But anytime you see programs coming out, you will see stuff like this in the marketplace. So just make sure you're getting those quotes, make sure you're getting a few opinions, and do your research. Make sure you're getting what your expectations are.
Lloyd, thanks very much for your call today.
Bernice, can I jump in here for 1 minute? I just want to.
Yes, go ahead, Peter.
I'd like to go back to some of the statements that Corey was making earlier and remind your listeners, people who have oil and they want to move off, especially seniors, but anybody who's not familiar with the program. I mean, one of the changes that was made recently is that rather than the customer having to come up with all the money on the front end and then getting a grant afterwards, it's changed now. So, whatever grant and monies that they're available for or eligible for, they go to the contractor. So you don't have to find the full amount of money, pay it, and then wait to get your grant money back. So that was a significant improvement in the program, so that people who are struggling and wouldn't be able to find that money, it's really gets them past that. And I wouldn't want people to think that we could never find whatever it's going to cost, whether it's $10,000 or $15,000, and then they don't even investigate the program. So just want to encourage and invite people to check it out. If you got oil and you're struggling with those bills and so on, that come investigate the program fully so that you can see if it can work for you.
Nathan, I want to come back to the matter of electrical service, because people may not always realize that in some cases the system they may be thinking of having installed, their current electrical system in their home may not be able to handle that. Could you speak briefly to that issue?
Yeah, whenever we're looking at a conversion, so in most cases it's when we're removing oil and we're going to a heat pump ducted system, we do require a 200 amp service. The reason for that is the backup heat kit that's involved in the system to make sure that system can continue to operate after -20. So, and when we are doing a 200 amp upgrade service, we have to look at the entire home. We got to look at, the switches in the kitchen, the lighting outside. There's a full list of things that we got to ensure up to date when we are doing those panel swaps. And if I can add a really quick thing to what Peter was just talking about on the Take Charge, it is a phenomenal program. The website has a lot of details, a lot of information. And as a contractor, it's probably one of the best programs we work with across Canada. So just to add a little bit more to that conversation, I think everybody should be really looking at it and getting involved.
Wonderful. Joan is on the line right now from Deer Lake, and we want to get to her as we're getting into the closing minutes of our program. Joan, good afternoon. Welcome to The Signal.
And good afternoon to you. I just have a quick question. Is it correct that when you have heat pumps in your home, you also have to have baseboard heaters in order to get your home insured? Is that true?
Yeah, great question, Joan. Thanks for that. That's a valid point. And the reason why you need to have another system to go along with the heat pumps, and I'm talking about mini splits or ductless heat pumps now primarily, is that as it gets very cold outside, the amount of heat that the heat pump can deliver goes down. So you don't have as much heating capacity because it's, let's just say, -15 outside. and that's when your house needs more heating. So in order to be able to fully meet the needs of the home, you have to have a heat pump plus a secondary system. Most people have baseboards. So at that time, when the wind is howling and it's minus 15 or minus 20, you might have to turn on a bit more of the electric resistance heat or the baseboards to go along with the heat pump. So yeah, that's a true point.
I find that too. And in the book that came with mine, the instruction book that you get, it says that they're ineffective after the temperature is minus 10 below.
Yeah,
so I guess ineffective means they're less effective.
Yeah. Well, I would. I mean, with cold climate heat pumps and many heat pumps, they will continue to work very well down past minus 10, minus 15, and the cold climates, could be minus 20 and colder. So there is, some misunderstanding maybe about that. They won't deliver as much heat as they can at 0 degrees or 5 degrees, but the vast majority of them will still give you lots of heat, but your home needs more heat when it gets cold outside.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much for this.
Thanks very much for calling in. Nathan, we're hearing a lot from people today about, some are placing a priority on moving away from fossil fuels for sure. Some are looking to save money in the long term, at least. How do you convince customers that it is worth the investment? I mean, obviously, you're not making the hard sell to people who aren't interested at all. But when people come to you, to your company, and they want to find out about a heat pump installation, how do you help them to understand what it's actually going to mean?
We have a strong focus on education at One Click Heating and Cooling, and that's really walking customers and teaching them through how these systems are going to work, how do they operate, and what the cost looks like as they're operating them. There's some great calculators online. There's one on the Take Charge website. There's also a company called Julia we use that really gives an in-depth analysis of how much people are going to save. And when you start breaking down the numbers, switching off oil and going to a heat pump, the numbers really do speak for themselves. The average return on investment for a customer is anywhere between 2 to 4 years, and that's not even counting the grant. Oil has become very expensive. I think right now we're at $1.47 a liter, and heat pumps just make sense. So with a strong education background, really guiding and teaching customers on how this technology works, I think it speaks for themselves, and customers are just looking for that option to move forward.
Peter, what do you say to people who, they are thinking, I guess, that it's going to last as long as a furnace? And we've heard today that's not likely to happen. These units do have a lifespan of up to 15 years, perhaps. What do you say to people who say, well, that's not maybe why you're doing it, but you're doing it for some other good reasons? Yeah,
and great question. I'll go back to our website and say there's so much good information on there. And really, from our perspective at Take Charge, we want people to make good decisions, good energy decisions for themselves with good information. So I think the reality is that heat pumps are not going to be a great choice for everybody. They're a very good choice for lots and lots of people, for sure. So yeah, people should fully investigate it. Get all the best information that they can, check out pricing and check out what they expect to save, and then make a good informed decision.
Nathan, the heat pump units most people talk about are a supplementary heat source, or certainly they have something else. Is there a day coming when people will be able to just have a heat pump and that will be their only heat source?
It's on its way. It really depends on the full construction. So in Ontario, we do a lot of net zero and passive homes. And in a passive home or a net zero home, so that's an extremely well insulated property, we can get away with a heat pump without any secondaries. So it really does come down to the construction. And we're going to see over time, as people continue to improve their homes, continue to insulate their homes, upgrade their windows and so on, when we can get these things airtight, we can start looking at options that aren't going to involve secondary heating sources. We are a few years away, but the technology's on its way.
There we go. We're looking to the future for sure with our discussion today. Thank you to both of you for joining me today. Thank you, Nathan Horton, for joining us.
Thank you very much for having me. It was great to be here.
Nathan Horton is with One Click Heating and Cooling, a company that's involved with heat pump installations all over Canada. Peter, thank you very much for joining us in our St. John studio today.
Oh, it was my pleasure, Bernice. Thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for all of your insight. Peter Upshaw of Newfoundland Power. He's an energy solutions engineer with Take Charge, which is a joint project of Newfoundland Power and Newfoundland and Labrador Hydro. Well, that is it for the show today. Tomorrow on The Signal, we'll be talking about financial services in rural and remote parts of the province. Do you still have a local bank branch? How important is that to you? Get ready to call in and tell us about how you do banking where you live.